Well, welcome back, everyone, to Along the Road. I'm Pastor Josh here in Kingston at the First Congregational Church, and this is
Katie, and I'm the Children's Discipleship Director.
And today we have another guest with us. I think this season has a little theme of bringing people along with us. This is Cindy Wellington. Cindy works here in the office. She does a lot of our communications and things that you see on Facebook and in print and other stuff, and really sees it as a great ministry. And Katie has heard about Along the Road a lot. Not Katie. Cindy has heard about Along the Road a lot and worked with us, just in what we do and make sure YouTube looks correct. That's another thing you help us do.
I also posted on Facebook to make sure everybody sees.
You do. Yeah, she keeps my life straight, which is really good and helpful as well. But more importantly, you see it as part of a ministry. And the reason I wanted to bring you today is the same reason we talked a little bit to Judy last week. And we've been talking about basically off the communion Mark did several weeks ago. What has Christ done for us? What do we think? And I was just thinking through our staff, through different people, hearing that answer, and so we don't know much about you. No one out there knows much about you, so you can share as much or as little as you want. But the question we want to start with is, Mark talked about, when I hold communion, I think of where I was before Christ, and then that journey that led me to Christ, and kind of share that remembrance. And so I think our first question is just to you, Cindy, what is a little bit of your journey leading to Christ that you're willing to share with us? And we'll start there and just see where the conversation goes.
Sure. Well, my journey to Christ was kind of convoluted because I wasn't brought up in the church at all. Well, I'll actually backpedal on that. We went to church once in a while, the Hampton Falls Baptist Church. My sister and I would walk. We were right down the street and just go in occasionally and listen to the music.
Yeah.
But that was the extent of it. We went to Vacation Bible School as well. So we had a little bit of church, but nothing consistent, nothing taught at home or anything in that respect. In my 30s, I was seeking something, not knowing exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I went all around Robin Hood's barn with New Age type things, meditation. I was a yoga enthusiast and instructor for a little while, so that was a journey that I was on for a while. But I found that it was very empty in the long run.
Yeah. The meditation for peace just gave you emptiness.
Well, what it did was it gave me a lot of realization that people on that road or what I was being taught really had a lot of different answers depending on who you went to. There was nothing that was really consistent. And finally the light was shed on that okay, where is the real answer? Yeah.
Where's the solid ground?
Where's the solid ground?
Yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that got me thinking, is this the right road that I want to be on?
Yeah.
So then along comes my husband, and we
was
get
your
married.
Husband at that point?
He was with me during this journey for a while, and then we got married, and then we had our daughter, and I was still seeking in that other realm for a while during that time.
Yeah.
And once we had her and she turned about 2, we realized that we really wanted to go to church. He was brought up in the church as a Catholic.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go back to a Catholic church, so we sought a church in our area. We were living in Barrington at the time, and right around the corner from our house was a Congregational church.
Sure.
Little white church on the corner in Barrington.
There we go.
First Congregational
Picturesque
church.
and all.
Yeah, very nice. So funny. The first sermon that I went to, Pastor Ed, who reminds me so much of Pastor Thomas.
Oh,
same kind of guy, well-spoken, very inspiring to listen to. He told a story of a guy who fell off a cliff, and he grabbed onto a root. And the guy, and you know how when you're in a situation like that, you promise God everything.
Yes.
He's talking to God, what do you want? I'll do this, I'll do that. And God said to him, let go of the branch. And he didn't expect that. And I said to myself, I want to let go of the branch.
Wow.
And that was like my confirmation that this is the road that I wanted to seek, and I wanted to.
That's neat.
That I wanted to. This is where I can find the answers that I've been looking for. Let go of the branch, and I've been trying to do that like ever since.
There you go.
Going to Bible studies, engaging in community wherever we were.
I think that's a great metaphor for anybody, even mature in their Christian walk, because we like to hold on to all the branches as
don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we though?
Yeah.
It's true. That's a great picture of that. And so your daughter was around 2.
She was around 2.
Yeah. And Doug, when did he let go of the branch, as to say?
He had a little more trouble with, particularly like accepting communion.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't feel that it was right for him to do that if all of his beliefs weren't in line because of his Catholic training.
Sure.
So it took he was a faithful goer,
Mm-hmm.
going to church and engaging in community, but was still a little bit on the edge.
Yeah.
He had a couple of conversations with the pastor, and finally he was able to reconcile that.
Yeah.
So maybe it took about a year for him to actually accept communion.
Yeah. Because he knew it was a serious thing.
He did.
And he wanted it to mean not a religious thing, but to mean the relationship part that I guess he was learning about.
Yeah.
A lot of modern people talk about that in a different way, but I don't think they realize that all generations do this differently. They now talk about this deconstructing of your faith. I don't know if you've heard about this, but a lot of new generations deconstruct your faith. And I don't mind the term as long as the other end of that is reconstructing.
Right.
Most deconstruct and leave it in shambles and just walk away. But it's similar to almost what you say with Doug's journey. Like, I had to deconstruct what his culture, what he learned, and growing up Catholic, and then he reconstruct who Christ was, and understanding that relationship. And I think it's good for people to hear that it's not just the new generation doing that. It's like everybody has to do that.
Yep.
It's making your faith your own.
Yeah. It's making your faith your own.
Make it your own. And so that leads into where Christ is now. That was, your daughter was 2, and I know she's out of college now. So it's been a few years, 20-some years.
Yeah.
And in that journey, that's kind of what we love to talk about here along the road, where faith intersects with life.
Right.
What are some moments where you go, these are places where, and I know Christ has been there the whole time, but kind of like those flag moments or those Ebenezer moments where this is where I really saw Christ, and he moved me into this next place or sustained me.
Yep.
It's kind of an open question of that, but what are those moments that you think of when you look back and you go, here's 2 or 3 of those?
Yeah. Well, let's see. That's harder.
Okay.
Yeah, it is harder.
Remember, because it's such a journey of looking for signposts a lot and developing a keen eye for looking and seeing and developing a relationship with Christ.
Well, how do you do that then?
Yeah.
I'll shift a little. How do you do that? Because I've met your daughter a couple times. She seems to love the Lord as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people are going, how do I help my children do that? Not that what you do makes them love the Lord, but what did you put in place or try to kind of guide her that way? Because you can do everything perfectly and they still run away. I get that part.
Right.
But, you and Doug had conversations, or we did this. What were things that you had in there?
We were faithful in bringing her to church and keeping her in Sunday school. I didn't have a lot to share because I was a very new Christian at the time. So to be honest, I felt pretty inadequate in that regard because I didn't know the Lord. We were all learning together.
Wow. So it was almost like you were learning the same thing she was learning in Sunday school. You were learning them together.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, I didn't know that story.
Yeah. Yeah, but we knew that taking every step along the way was an important one to take.
Yeah.
And we dove into community in Barrington. We had some really great friends who believed in the term koinonia.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of gatherings, and just through that, in that accepting community, I think the example they gave us helped us give it to Nicole, and sort of passed on that way. And I just loved learning about the Lord.
Yeah.
And how he works in my life and in life in general.
So if you love learning about the Lord and you're passing this on with the family, what were I'm just curious.
Sure.
if we take the Old Testament, what is right now, if just today, not over the whole lifetime, but just today, you go, the Old Testament, this is my favorite section right now, or book, or prophet, or story.
I really love Abraham and his story of faith.
Yeah.
I I really want to be as faithful as him picking up the walk from the very beginning. I'd like to know a little bit more about his history so that, you know, where his faith came from. And so he's probably my favorite that I think about when I'm struggling and not knowing
what's next.
Yeah.
And if we flip to the New Testament side, is there an area in there right now that you kind of like, this is where I'm at, or I enjoy this part?
Probably John.
The Gospel of John, or the character of John? The
Gospel of John.
Yeah.
And just his love.
Yeah.
Love for the Lord and his explanation of how God is love and yeah.
Okay, so you've been going on this journey. Your daughter's 25 now, and so at this stage, you and Doug are empty nesters, and so over the last couple of years, there's been several big transitions. Empty nesting.
Yep.
Your daughter's actually out of college, but working somewhere else. So there's a transition. But you also had another one where I know Doug has had a battle, and so in these two transitions, you know, how did faith play into that, and what do you see God working in those?
Faith plays a big role in parenting, especially when you have to let your daughter go to college. She wanted to go to George Washington University in the heart of Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
And I can still remember her smiling and waving at me as we're walking away, and she's walking into Thurston Hall.
Did you cry?
I cried in the car.
Okay, you held it to the car.
I held it to the car. But I remember reading a devotional that day, and this is how God shows up, and this is why I love watching for his signposts and getting comfort in just small things. The devotion I read, either in the car, after we dropped her off, or before, I don't remember exactly when, was you have to let go. You have to...
Go that branch again.
Yeah, you have to let go. You have to give her to me.
Yeah.
Basically. And I was like, you got her, God. Show me what to do next.
Yeah.
And so that gave me comfort. And knowing that he's talking to me, because I take that as a personal conversation.
Absolutely.
With God to me.
I mean, that's no mistake in that timing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that.
I just love looking for those little signposts when I pray, to try and keep my mind open for not what I want to pray for, but how God wants that prayer to play out in my life.
Yeah.
How is he going to answer it? Because his ways are not my ways.
Oh, well, we know that. That's
my
true.
ways are blinders oftentimes with short-sightedness.
Yeah. We're very good at that.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. But I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of parents, I'm not at that stage yet, but they struggle with the let go part.
Yeah.
And then they struggle with the let go part when they become grandparents for the first time. Oh no, you got to parent this way. You got to parent but to let them go and to I've seen you do this, to more support and encourage, and then I'm here if you need help. If you want the advice, talk to us about it. But I'm not just going to freely tell you everything you need to do.
Right.
As far as I know, I'm sure you could wax on it a long time here. She's doing really well and enjoys career and the Lord, and that's really good. And in the middle of all that, you know, you said, or we said, you know, there was Doug was dealing with some cancer. And so how does that, like, for me, I'm always like, God, what are you doing? Things seem to be, like, you finally got in a good stride, and then this, and so.
Right. And that cancer was really aggressive. It's a hereditary form of cancer. His brother had it 11 years earlier. So it was almost just like a ticking time bomb. We figured it was going to show up at some point.
Yeah.
And it did. And we prayed, and it's interesting that Doug was at an office that didn't do the best at diagnosing. It took a little bit of time, but to get, you know, his results for his cancer and what it was. But along the way, because his brother Chris had the cancer, and his brother Chris's sister-in-law works at Dana-Farber, Chris went to Dana-Farber. Chris got great treatment there with this doctor that's a world-renowned physician. So when we found out Doug had cancer and we weren't really feeling comfortable with the treatment that he was getting, Chris made a few phone calls, who got us into this doctor, and we felt so taken care of.
Yeah.
Again, it was a path that God set up for us because He knew Doug had the cancer in him. He knew that Chris had it, and He knew that this doctor was available, and He made the room for us.
Yeah, and instead of it showing up at the same time for both brothers, it showed up 11 years earlier. And everyone, why this? And Chris is still with us.
Mm-hmm.
And now later, there's this plethora of wisdom, information, connections to kind of help you guys with that part. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And the doctor was amazing. Here is this doctor who's world-renowned. We're sitting in the waiting room, obviously nervous and upset. What are we going to...
Yeah.
And he comes walking out and introduces himself and shakes our hands and escorts us into his office. And we were there for probably 45 minutes.
Wow.
He went, and every one of the doctors there, you walk away feeling so taken care of.
Because when they're with you, they're with you.
When they're with you, they're with you.
They're not going, I got to get to my next one. I got to get to my next one. It's I have this.
Yep, and I just saw that as God's grace.
Yeah.
You know, and God taking care of us.
Yeah.
And that's how He does it.
Yeah.
He shows up.
I think that's a wonderful part of the story. So,
What
advice would you give to people about being on this journey? I mean, yours is obviously like a type of roller coaster and everywhere. And you know, Katie and I have even talked about, Katie said, well, I don't have one of those, testimonies that are just wild, crazy. That's not, I don't think that's how God operates. We tend to lean towards those better. But, here we are in this world. It's crazy. You have a roller coaster testimony, not, wild and crazy, but I'd love to learn yoga from you now. It's a whole new thing. That's a new process. I like that. I need to stretch some more. But, here we are. God is 25 years later, brought you to this place. And what do you say to people who are maybe in a similar stage of life of you or just out there with this journey that they're in?
Yeah, during this conversation, I remembered a pivotal moment, not necessarily with Doug's cancer, but with another thing that he and I were going through, and everything I was doing wasn't working. It was a time in our marriage that everybody goes through, a little bit tough.
Yeah.
And I realized that I need to stop trying to change my circumstances and sit with God. So I pulled out the Power of a Praying Woman, and I went through it, and I realized that it's funny because the very beginning epilogue, you might want to call it, Stormy O'Mardian is saying, well, why am I the one that needs to change? And God says, because you asked. and so that's what my journey has been. It's been an inward one. How can I change? What do I need to do, Lord, in order to see more clearly, and savor what you say and put it into practice?
Yeah.
So that I'm not the one who's changing or trying to change those around me. It's you.
Yeah.
And so that's worked a lot
beautiful.
better, let me just say.
Yeah.
Very good.
You also, I think that's beautiful because we tend to be that. I think in humanity we tend to be that, like, we just got to fix this person, or I got to fix this thing. We'll just put another system here and get this, and we don't like to sit with it. Sometimes talk about sitting in quiet, because then you have to be honest with your faults.
Yeah.
Or your inadequacy with how you're trusting God here, or how you've treated someone here, even if the circumstances were like, well, I was frustrated, so I let off some shit. But still, you have to sit with that.
Yeah.
And so the willingness to do that, I think, is a great key. I think a lot of people can learn from that. And so I appreciate your story. I appreciate you. I think that's a great key for all of that. I mean, you had a search that had, what I love is that you said you were searching, but there was no foundation to it. Mm-hmm. But after that, things still happen, still struggled, still this, and even in this, the last thing you're telling us here in that prayer, the foundation is, I still need to change because my foundation is Christ.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change. And so, okay, this is what you're hanging on to. This is what your feet are. Yeah. And that means I have to see where I'm not like that.
Right.
And I think that changes every day.
It does change every day. And God's purpose for us is to be more like Him.
Yeah.
And so that's the rule that should apply to everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I tell everybody, we like to take something from what you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great thing to take, is that we have to basically take that time can see how we need to change towards Christ.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. But you also let me know it's a
let
lifelong journey. What we need to let go of, which is just as hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing that Christ will catch you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going back to that.
Going all the way back.
Branch story.
Let go of that branch, and he will catch you and give you the solid footing. And then you let go of the next branch. You let go.
Yeah.
As I said, I think it's more than one we hold on to. We look for the next one. Look for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big, tall branch, and you keep, a mountain, and you keep bouncing down and grabbing onto this, that, and the other thing, and you got to let go.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's a
that's
good journey.
I think it is, and you let us know it's not a one-time thing. You know, and you even said you're still doing that today. Mm-hmm. Still, what is it? And I think that's important.
We're not going to say how many years, but
I never say.
Doing it. No,
I don't mention those things. Not at all.
No, when I'm tired, it's discouraging. It's like,
Yeah.
Really, Lord,
Yeah.
another one.
Another
I
one.
still have to let go again.
Again, and change.
Oh.
Yeah. So I thank you again.
You're welcome.
We're glad you're here with us. Like I said, take some time, sit with it this week, and see what you need to let go of, and see what needs to become more like Christ. Until then, we'll see you next week.
Take care.
I know.